Right now, your company's most expensive, highly educated strategists are probably acting like, well, minimum wage data entry clerks.
Yeah, which is wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, we are talking about brilliant minds, right? People who are paid six figures to predict global market trends, analyze complex consumer behaviors, map out the future of an entire business season, and they are somehow spending like 60% of their work week just copying and pasting numbers inside Microsoft
Oh,
Excel.
absolutely. It sounds completely absurd, but it is the reality across almost every major industry right now.
Exactly. And, the proposed solution we always hear in the media is usually one of two extremes. Either AI is this utopian magic wand that will just do all our work while we sip margaritas on the beach, or,
Or it's a dystopian nightmare coming to eliminate everyone's job by next Tuesday.
right. And that is incredibly frustrating
Mhm.
because both of those extreme narratives completely miss what is actually happening on the ground.
They do. When you move away from the science fiction tropes and look at the practical application of this technology in the enterprise world today, it isn't about replacing human intelligence. It is about deploying a highly specialized, hyper-competent digital teammate
Yeah.
to sit right alongside you and take over the brute force labor.
And that is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We are going to decode a massive shift in how work gets done by looking at a concept called Agentic AI.
Mm-hmm.
And we are doing it through the lens of a massive multi-trillion-dollar industry, which is retail merchandising. We have a fantastic stack of sources to guide us today, too. We are pulling from an insider interview with the co-CEO of Intelo.ai, an AI agent startup that actually just raised a $2 million funding round from Illuminate Ventures.
Right, for funding.
Yeah, we also have a hands-on transcript of their actual product demo, the technical specs from their website, and a really insightful LinkedIn article written by a Microsoft for Startups executive that puts this entire, technological shift into perspective.
It is worth emphasizing right up front, though, that the goal here is not just to talk about retail clothing.
Definitely not.
The retail industry is just the canary in the coal mine here. We are extracting the core lessons from these specific sources to show you, the listener, how you can use this exact type of specialized AI to fundamentally change your own daily workflow. And that is regardless of whether you work in finance, healthcare, marketing, or logistics.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to understand why agentic AI is such a breakthrough, we first have to understand the massive hidden bottleneck it is trying to solve. And spoiler alert, it is not a lack of data.
Oh no, retailers have way more data than they know what to do with.
Right, the bottleneck is the way highly trained professionals are forced to interact with that data.
Exactly. And the sources paint a very vivid picture of retail merchandising to illustrate this point. The industry is described as this really high-stakes mix of art and science,
Yeah, the art and the science.
right? These planners and buyers have to look at what specific silhouettes and colors are hitting the runway at, say, Milan Fashion Week. Then they have to predict how that will translate to everyday consumer demand, and then prepare for massive sales events like Black Friday, literally months in advance.
Oh, wow.
On top of that, they have to adjust inventory for regional weather patterns, ensuring the right product mix for a store in the rainy Pacific Northwest versus a store in the sunny Southeast. It is an incredibly nuanced, complex puzzle.
It sounds like playing 4D chess, but with millions of dollars on the line.
Pretty much.
But here is the shocking part from the sources. Despite these retail giants having massive legacy software systems, I'm talking billion-dollar enterprise resource planning tools, modern point-of-sale systems tracking every swipe of a credit card, these brilliant merchandisers and planners are spending an astonishing 50 to 60% of their time trapped inside spreadsheets.
Yep.
They are manually reconciling data across all those different disconnected systems.
And the Microsoft article points out exactly why this happens. The executive notes that demand signals today are more fragmented than ever before. You have TikTok trends creating overnight spikes in demand, interconnected global supply chains, complex omni-channel fulfillment. Yet, legacy planning still happens in these very rigid, slow cycles.
So the systems just don't keep up.
No, the software systems don't talk to each other intuitively. So a human being has to act as the bridge. You pull data from the inventory system, You export it to a CSV file, you load it into Excel, you run a macro, you manually adjust the forecast, and then you upload it all the way back into the financial system.
That is just, I want to put that into a perspective that anyone can relate to. It is like you have hired a Michelin star executive chef to run your restaurant, but you are forcing them to spend 60% of their shift standing in the back just chopping onions and peeling potatoes.
That is a great analogy.
Right. Because they have absolutely zero time to invent new recipes. They have zero time to think about long-term business strategy or what the menu should look like next season because they are completely buried in the manual labor of prep work.
And what's fascinating here is the brutal economic reality behind your chef analogy. When you have highly educated, highly compensated professionals bogged down by repetitive manual workflows, a business's operating expenses, the OPEX, balloons significantly without generating any new strategic value.
Because you're paying them to think, not to type.
Exactly. You are paying a premium for strategic thinking, but you are only getting basic data entry in return. Because no organization has unlimited OPEX, Intelo realized something profound. Their true competitor in this space isn't another giant tech conglomerate like Oracle or SAP.
Wait, really? Who is it?
Their biggest competitor is actually Microsoft Excel. The spreadsheet itself and our reliance on it is the ultimate bottleneck to innovation.
So, if the spreadsheet is the enemy, throwing a generic chatbot at a spreadsheet doesn't actually solve the problem, right? I mean, ChatGPT doesn't inherently know the first thing about Milan Fashion Week or regional inventory distribution. So how do you digitize that specific human intuition without losing the art of the industry?
Well, that is the crucial pivot, and this is exactly where the concept of Agentic AI comes in.
No.
The answer isn't buying one massive generic AI model and hoping it figures out your complex business. It is about building a specialized network of agents.
Yeah, the founder of Intelo uses this phrase in his interview that I think perfectly captures it. He says their approach is a foot wide and a mile deep.
I love that framing.
Yeah. Instead of having one AI that tries to, write poetry, code software, and plan inventory all at once, they have built a network of over 30 highly specialized agents divided into specific functional teams. They have an agent dedicated entirely to assortment planning, another for core financial planning, another just for pricing, and another for in-season management. It is essentially an entire digital workforce where every agent has a very specific major.
And when you look at the transcript of the product demo, you see how this changes the user experience entirely. The interface doesn't look like some complicated futuristic spaceship dashboard. It actually looks exactly like the familiar spreadsheets the merchants are already used to.
Oh, that's smart. Less friction for the user.
Exactly. The difference is the conversational layer sitting on top of it.
Yeah, the demo was wild to read through. Instead of manually typing Velo O-Cup formulas for 3 days, a planner can just talk to the interface. They can literally type, hey, create a baseline financial plan using last year's data, and boom, the agent builds the seed plan instantly.
Just like that.
But it goes so much deeper than just historical data. The planner can ask the agent about abstract macroeconomic trends. In the demo, they ask, what is the impact of trade and tariffs on this plan?
Right, a massive real-world variable.
And the agent instantly pulls the macro data, runs a complex scenario, and adjusts the long-range financial plan to account for potential supply chain costs. It's crazy.
The capabilities become even more vital at the end of a season, too. An agent can be instructed to automatically analyze every single SKU.
And for anyone outside of retail, a SKU is essentially the unique barcode for a specific item, right? Like a medium blue t-shirt.
Exactly. So the agent looks at every single SKU,
Right.
predicts the demand across different store locations, and creates a comprehensive transfer plan to rebalance inventory. It figures out exactly which items need to move from a store where they are sitting on the shelf gathering dust to a store 3 states away where demand is through the roof.
And the results from their website specs speak for themselves. In one instance, these assortment planning agents identified a 3 to 5 point margin improvement opportunity in a Q4 seasonal mix across 12 store clusters.
That is massive.
Massive real-world profit found just by having a system smart enough to see the patterns that a human staring at a spreadsheet for 10 hours would eventually miss due to sheer fatigue. But here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to push back on this premise.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's be real. Why couldn't a massive retailer just buy a generic enterprise-level license for Google Gemini or OpenAI, plug it into their database, and instruct it to do the exact same thing? I mean, why do you need this specific startup's agents?
That is the multi-million-dollar question every chief technology officer is asking right now. And the answer lies in Intelo's custom reasoning engine. Generic large language models, whether it is Gemini, OpenAI, or Claude, are fundamentally built and trained by engineers.
Mhm.
So they speak and reason like engineers.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's right. They're essentially massive probability engines, guessing the next most logical word. But Intelo specifically trained its agents to speak the language of a retail merchant.
Wait, let me stop you there. Are you saying they just taught the AI a bunch of vocabulary words? Like teaching it the difference between sell-through rate and markdown optimization? Because honestly, I can prompt ChatGPT to use those words right now.
No, it is much deeper than just vocabulary. It is about the underlying logic. When a generic LLM gives you an answer, it's probabilistic. It cannot easily show you the mathematical steps it took to arrive at that specific conclusion.
Ah, I see.
And in the enterprise world, that creates what the industry calls the black box trap. Older machine learning tools in the retail space, like Redalon or Liafio, suffered from this exact issue. They would spit out an inventory recommendation, but the human user couldn't see the logic behind it.
And no one wants to bet their job on a guess they can't verify.
Precisely. If a merchant is going to bet $50 million in inventory on an AI recommendation, they cannot just trust a black box. They need to know the why. Intelo's agents are deterministic. They show their work step by step, allowing the merchant to audit the logic, question the data sources, tweak the constraints, and actually collaborate with the tool.
So it is treating the AI like a junior analyst showing you their math homework, rather than a magic oracle on a mountain. That makes total sense.
It really does.
And it leads us perfectly into a massive psychological hurdle the sources bring up. Because when you introduce software that can automatically rebalance, store inventory, and build a financial plan in 3 minutes instead of 3 weeks, a very natural, very human panic sets in across the workforce.
Well, without a doubt.
People look at this capability and immediately think, my job is entirely gone.
That fear is palpable, and what is interesting is how the Intelo founder addresses it head-on in the interview. He brings up a recent MIT study that is incredibly telling for anyone worried about AI implementation. The study showed that 95% of Fortune 500 AI implementations failed.
I saw that. 95% is a staggering failure rate. I mean, if a surgeon had a 95% failure rate, they wouldn't be a surgeon. How is that even happening?
Well, the study suggests is because these massive companies just dipped their toes in. They bought the flashy new technology, but they didn't set clear key performance indicators. And crucially, they completely failed to manage the cultural change within their human workforce.
Right. You can't just drop it on their desks.
Exactly. You cannot just drop a powerful AI into a legacy workflow, offer zero training, and expect magic to happen. The employees either reject it out of fear or they use it incorrectly.
Which goes back to why Intelo focuses so heavily on that concept of collaborative intelligence. The specialized agents are there to handle the tedious pattern recognition and the heavy workflow lifting. They're there to chop the onions.
Right. Back to the chef.
Yeah. That frees up the human planner to actually go talk to the design teams, to analyze cultural zeitgeist movements that an AI simply can't feel, and to build strategic business plans 2 or 3 years out, rather than just scrambling to survive the current season's spreadsheet.
A perfect illustration of this collaborative approach in the sources is Intelo's partnership with Balenciaga.
Oh, the luxury brand.
Yes. In the luxury retail space, precision is everything. Having the right high-end product in the exact right boutique dramatically impacts both revenue and the exclusive customer experience. Balenciaga is using Intelo's agents to maintain a continuous real-time view of demand and inventory.
So they aren't just guessing 6 months out anymore.
Right. They're moving away from those rigid, historical planning cycles where you make a plan in January and just cross your fingers until June, and shifting to a dynamic model where the system continuously monitors daily demand and suggests allocation adjustments in real time. The human still makes the final call, but the AI serves up the opportunity on a silver platter.
In the interview, the founder used a really funny analogy about this fear we have of letting the software make suggestions. He called it the Frankenstein effect.
Yeah, that was great.
As kids, we watch sci-fi movies, we see Skynet taking over the world in Terminator, and we are culturally conditioned to fear the monster. But when you actually go back and read Mary Shelley's book, you realize the technology itself, the creation, is just a tool. It is the application and the human management of that tool that dictates whether it becomes a monster or a miracle.
Absolutely.
So I want to pause and pose this directly to you, listening right now. Think about your own daily workflow. When you hear about AI entering your specific industry, are you assuming it is Skynet coming to lock you out of the building? Or are you looking at it as an incredibly capable assistant that never sleeps, never complains, and just wants to format your spreadsheets?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Microsoft article makes a brilliant observation about the evolution of software that explains why this feels so disruptive.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are witnessing a massive transition in enterprise software right now. For decades, businesses relied on what we call systems of record. These are essentially giant digital filing cabinets, a database where you simply store information until a human needs to look at it. But with Agentic AI, we are now moving to systems of decision.
I love that framing, systems of decision.
Exactly. To use your analogy again, if a system of record is a filing cabinet, a system of decision is like hiring an active assistant who reads the files, realizes you have a massive vendor bill due tomorrow, checks the bank balance, and goes ahead and drafts the check for you to review and sign.
The software actively participates in the workflow.
Yes, and the Microsoft executive points out other startups doing this outside of retail too. Companies like Augur in supply chain autonomy or Simpla Contract in contract management. The software acts on the data within the system itself.
Wow.
And regarding the fear of an AI bubble that constantly dominates the financial news networks, the founder argues we are barely in the second inning in this game.
Just getting started.
Right. The first inning was just the release of foundational models like ChatGPT. Now we are entering the application layer where the technology actually has to prove its return on investment by solving highly specific, complex business problems.
Okay, so it is one thing for a startup CEO to build these tools, secure millions in funding, and tell other companies not to be afraid of the technology. It's easy to preach. But I really wanted to know how an AI company actually operates behind their own closed doors.
And the interview gave us a fascinating look into Intelo's internal culture.
It really did. This is where the lofty theory we are talking about becomes a very sharp, very practical playbook for everyone listening.
The founder is very explicit about this. He stated they operate on a strict, eat-our-own-dog-food culture internally.
And strict feels like an understatement when you read the details. He said that during their hiring process and in their daily operations, AI usage is absolutely mandatory, not encouraged. Mandatory.
Yeah, that's intense.
They literally track their employees' tool usage weekly using automated Slack channels. If an employee, and he specified, whether you are in sales, marketing, human resources, or engineering, if you are not actively using tools like Google Gemini, ChatGPT, Cursor for coding, or Anthropic's Claude every single hour on the hour, you will not survive at the company. You will be let go.
He backed that up with a personal example, too, to show he holds himself to the exact same standard. Just before recording the podcast interview we are referencing, he used an AI tool called Gamma to build a complete pixel-perfect slide presentation for a meeting.
And how long did it take him?
He did it in just 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah. Tasks that used to take days of formatting, aligning text boxes, and finding stock photos are now done in the time it takes to brew a cup of coffee.
So, what does this all mean? I have to throw this to you to debate. Because hearing about a CEO tracking his employees' hourly AI usage through Slack feels incredibly intense. It sounds a bit like Big Brother. Is that kind of management cutthroat and slightly dystopian? Or is it simply the mandatory, realistic table stakes for surviving what is essentially a new industrial revolution? I mean, are we stripping away human creativity by forcing every single task through an AI filter?
This raises an important question about the reality of the modern workforce, and it's a debate every company will soon have.
Definitely.
The tracking might sound dystopian to some, but it reinforces a sentiment that is rapidly becoming the consensus across the tech industry. The hard truth is this: AI is not going to take your job. But a human professional who is hyper-fluent in AI absolutely will take your job.
Yep, there it is.
If you are competing for a promotion or a client against someone who can generate a flawless, deeply researched presentation in 3 minutes, while it takes you 3 hours of manual labor, the open market will inevitably favor the efficiency.
You just can't compete with that output.
Exactly. The creativity isn't lost, though. It's elevated. You spend 3 minutes on the slides and 2 hours and 57 minutes refining the actual strategic message. Fluency in these tools is becoming as foundational to holding a white-collar job as knowing how to use email was 20 years ago. You just can't opt out.
That is a harsh but entirely necessary truth. You either adapt and elevate your skill set, or you get left behind formatting text boxes. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's distill the core takeaways from this massive stack of sources. First, the era of trying to use a generic chatbot to run a complex business is evolving. In the enterprise world, specialized, inch-wide, and a mile deep, agentic AI digital workers trained on specific industry logic is the new standard.
Second, transparency is absolutely non-negotiable. If AI is going to participate in high-stakes business decisions and manage millions in inventory, it cannot operate as a black box. It must function as a collaborative intelligence that explains its step-by-step reasoning, allowing human experts to audit the logic and work alongside it.
And finally, the era of spending 60% of your work week manually reconciling spreadsheets and doing basic data entry is coming to an end. Which brings me back to you, listening to this right now. I challenge you to take a hard, honest look at your own daily workflows tomorrow morning. Are you spending the majority of your day just chopping onions?
Doing manual data entry, formatting slides, writing routine emails that could easily be automated.
Right. Or are you actively utilizing these AI tools to delegate the prep work, elevating yourself to the executive chef level of pure high-level strategy? The tools are out there waiting to be used.
It is a critical audit of your own time and value. The technology exists today to automate the mundane. The only remaining variable is whether you have the willingness to adopt it and the courage to completely restructure how you view your own daily labor.
A completely new paradigm for the modern worker. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on as you go about your day. We have spent this entire deep dive talking about how agentic AI is going to eliminate our mundane spreadsheet tasks and finally give us back 60% of our week for pure strategic thinking. But here's the question. Are human brains actually wired to be highly creative and deeply strategic for a solid 40 hours a week? Or, in the sudden absence of manual labor and soothing, repetitive tasks, will we subconsciously invent entirely new, complex forms of corporate busywork just to feel productive? Think about it. Until next time, keep diving deep.